When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast is what they've been missing. When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast is what they've been missing. When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast, this is what they've been missing. When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast is what they've been missing. Word.
Welcome to Mark My Words, where our guests agree to speak, and me, the host, I agree to listen, while you all agree to eavesdrop. Our guest today is former City Councilman of South District Representative of Rochester, New York, where in 2024, he did all the way up until 2019. It is our host, and it is a privilege and an honor to sit and converse with Mr. Adam McFadden. Welcome, Mr. McFadden.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's an honor, really, to have you here today. I'm glad you took the time to say yes to becoming one of my guests here on Mark My Words. One of the reasons I wanted to have you here today is because I wanted you to sit on a specific platform, meaning a cultural platform, if you will, that we can speak to our media. And what I mean by our media is Black media. Mm-hmm. I've seen you in the media and others have seen you in the past, but not like we would like to see you today. Today meaning a platform where you can speak to our eavesdroppers and try to give them some exclusive things that they don't know about Mr. McFadden. So one of the things I wanted to start with is just you telling us who you are as far as when you're coming from, where you came up from, starting from Adam as a young man.
Well, for me, I was born and raised in Rochester, New York. Grew up on the west side, Genesee Street. Specifically Genesee and Sawyer. That's how most people know me as a young person, just kind of running around. Was involved in a lot of stuff as a young man. Grew up in extreme poverty, oldest of 5 boys. And my mother just raised me to be like the leader of her household. And so that's why I've always had kind of like a big brother spirit to a lot of people, or even father figure to a lot of people, because of how I was raised in the household, because of the responsibilities that were placed on me. So I was involved in gangs. I was a member of Black Mob as a young man. Got put on probation at 15, shot at 14, but then got a scholarship to go to college, an academic scholarship to go to college by the time I was 18. So a lot of folks don't know my struggle. They just know the councilman. Right. I was a guy that I think at the roots of my being, I'm a very violent person. I just manage it because I understand that I can't be a violent person. But the way that I grew up, we handled things violently. That's how we handled conflict. And then once I got in trouble as a young man, I had a teacher and a probation officer that really took a liking to me and saw something in me, and they found a way to take that energy and shift it. So now I wasn't fighting. I was just involved in a lot of activities, projects. I ended up majoring in aviation at Edison. I won a Rochester Rotary Award for aviation my senior year. Had a job offer to work as an aviation mechanic when I graduated high school. So my life had changed because these two individuals just kept me busy, and they didn't want to lose me to the system, because I was a smart kid, but I was just always like in little scuffles and fights and stuff like that. And being on probation kind of was one of the best things that probably could happen to me at that age. I was only supposed to be on probation for a year. And I remember going to see the judge after a year with my report card and my probation officer. And she looks at my report card and she goes, "Oh, you're on honor roll." Oh, yeah.
And what age was this?
I was 16 at this time. Okay. So I'm going, yeah, honor roll. I'm happy. I'm thinking, I'm good. She goes, "That's really good. I'm gonna give you another year."
Oh, wow.
And my mouth dropped, and I'm going, wait a minute. I'm doing everything that I need to do. But she explained to me, I can't let you lose this momentum.
Wow.
And it was that second year of probation where I really kind of got into school and really studying and doing some other things.
What school were you at
Edison Tech.
Edison Tech.
And that allowed me to basically get a scholarship offer for academics to Claflin University. And so when I was 18 and graduated, I left Rochester to go to school.
Now that's an HBCU in South Carolina.
Yeah, Orangeburg, South Carolina. It's most people know South Carolina State. Claflin and South Carolina State are separated by a fence.
Okay.
Not across the street. It's a fence that goes through the campus because South Carolina State used to be part of that campus was Claflin. We sold it to the state in the early 1900s. So we always tell them they came from us. And but I love my HBCU. I have a daughter that attends there now. She's a senior. She'll be graduating in May. And my youngest daughter is a junior at Morgan. And then my oldest daughter is in Houston, a mogul, has her master's degree, owns properties, and doing a lot of good stuff. So I always say, you know, you can judge me by the seeds that I produce.
Right.
So.
Speaking of that, when you mentioned your mother, per my research, I found that you were born to a single mother.
Yes.
She's a single mother of four?
Five. I'm the
Five.
oldest of five boys.
So can we touch on the absence of pops?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
my father died in 2016. We did not have a relationship when I was a kid. I remember the day that relationship died. I think it was like 8 or 9 years old, and there was this racing car track that would go up the wall and come back down. It was like a big deal when I was a kid. I never asked my father for anything, and I remember him calling on my birthday, and I said, "Hey, I'm excited because I'm going to ask him for this racing car track." And when I asked him, he was just like, "Hell no, I'm not getting you that shit." I mean, it was just. I was just shocked that the response was so brash, right? And I cried. My mother got on the phone and said, "You don't ever have to worry about us asking you for anything for him ever." And she meant it. So
at that time, were you the oldest kid?
I was the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my brothers and I have a different father.
Okay.
And so at that point, I didn't have a relationship with him, but his father, my grandfather, lived around the corner from me.
Your paternal grandfather.
Yeah. So my father's father, yes. So we had a great relationship.
Okay.
But as far as me and my dad, we didn't connect until I was 28. And then I just told him, I said, "You don't have to be, you know, a father to me, but you can be a grandfather to your grandchildren." And he was a great grandfather. I give him that. He sucked as a father, great grandfather.
Great to hear that. And great that he found some type of redemption.
Oh yeah.
But so how did that play a role in, I'm listening to you say 8 years old, you made that call and he said no, very abrasively. But then at 14, you joined the gang. So single mother, absent father, then when you did speak to the father, there was some discord. And then 14, you joined a gang.
Well, the gang thing wasn't really like you see on TV. For me, it was
like a posse.
It was
homies.
We all lived in the same neighborhood, and what prompted me joining was I'll never forget. I think I was at Charlotten Middle School at the time. That morning, the Holly Boys and G Boys had joined up and all became the G Boys, and they were going on school buses jumping kids. So by the time I got to middle school, that was like the talk of the town, like all the kids that got beat up and all of this stuff. So going home, still kind of like the talk on the bus, I get off at Genesee and Sawyer, and I'm met by some older guys. And it was a couple of us getting off the bus, and they said, "How old are you?" I told them how old I was. Said, "Okay, 7 o'clock, we're going down the street to fight the G Boys." Now, mind
just like that.
It was just like that. I wasn't jumped in.
Right.
Nothing. It was just told what it was going to be.
No initiation.
No. And I remember going down there for that fight, and I'm fighting cats that I grew up with. People I went to the Boys and Girls Club with. People I played basketball with and did other things with. It was like awkward. It was a very awkward thing for me because I had to choose a side.
Mm-hmm.
The side I was on was a cast that I lived directly with, but the other side was cast that I was friends with too. And it was a tough decision.
Because listen to your story quite thoroughly here. I'm hearing that you were someone that was in the streets, like hood, I guess, or grew up impoverished, but yet scholastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to see, was that something, did you try to hide that from?
No, my mother, and I think back then all our mothers, even the guys that were like in black, our mothers were like, go to school, get your education. Okay. My mother came from sharecroppers in King Street, South Carolina, where they had to work the fields and go to school. And so for her, she understood the way out of poverty was for me to get my education. So, and she had this saying that you would say, you're skating on thin ice, you're hanging by a thin thread. I remember being on honor roll, my mother told me that. I'm going, wait a minute.
I'm still on thin
ice and I'm on honor roll.
Right.
But she knew me. She knew that I was never giving like all that I could possibly give, because I probably could have been on high honor roll, you know. But it's just, she just knew how I was. Just like she would never let me just rest and take it easy.
Okay, because it's important that the eavesdroppers understand and hear that you were somebody that started off that's maybe seemingly to be like in a rough patch, but you somehow emerged to be this.
Well, God gave me a gift.
Right. Now, what would you say that gift is?
To be an advocate for people, to stand up to tough things, to not have fear, to be able to raise money and awareness and stuff like that. And I knew I always had that. So even as a kid, trying to figure out how to sometimes, you know, put a meal on the table for my family, I figured it out.
So how did you end up really departing from Black Mob? How did you leave the gang?
It was the probation.
It was
because when I was on probation, they kept me after school in programs. They kept me. By the time I got home, I had a job and I had so much going on that I was missing all of the street stuff. It wasn't that I didn't want to do it, but probation had me so active in different things that by the time I got home, everybody was in the house.
So probation worked for you?
Yeah, it was a good thing because it was purposeful.
Right.
The people involved between my teacher, Mr. Toms, and Calvin Scott, who is a fraternity brother of mine, which is one of the reasons why I joined my fraternity, they stayed on me. They didn't let me take it easy. They challenged me, but they didn't disrespect me. They didn't make me feel less than. They always told me how bright I was and what I could possibly do, and I believed it.
Okay. So as the older brother out of 5, how did you become like, or did you mentor your younger brother?
I was the disciplinarian in my house.
Okay, so you took the father role.
Yeah, so my mother held me to a standard that if they messed up, I had to discipline them or I would get disciplined.
And so how did you handle that?
It wasn't easy. I think it caused frictions between me and my second oldest brother, you know. But everybody else, if you see the relationship between me and my brothers, it's more like a father relationship than it is a brother relationship. Yeah.
From my research, everyone's last name is McFadden.
No.
So
there's two that's not.
Okay, 2 brothers that's not.
Yeah.
Okay. So you told me that you only had one father that's your father only. So your mother last name is McFadden.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was wise enough to say, I'm going to name y'all.
Yeah, my father's last name is Keys. He's half black, half Italian. So his father was the Keys, and then his mother was Sinise.
Okay.
And so I have Italian relatives here in Rochester, actually.
Oh, okay.
And I've actually been to Italy to see my family.
I saw that when I was researching you went to Italy, and I was kind of wondering, like, why did you go to Italy? Not that we don't go, but I'm just saying, like, yours seemed like purposeful.
Oh, yeah, very much so. I wanted to meet my family. So I got to meet my great aunt, who is kind of responsible for my grandparents being married. My grandmother and grandfather got married during World War II.
Okay.
So if you've ever seen the movie that Spike Lee did called Miracle at St. Anna's, that film reminds me of how my grandparents met. As a matter of fact, I had a chance to meet Spike Lee, and we were trying to get photos to him for that movie in particular. Because of that, yeah.
All right, so we're going to fast forward to when you said you went to HBCU in South Carolina. What did you major in?
Accounting.
Accounting. That was it?
Well, when I first got there, I was a political science major. I sat in one class and felt like it was too easy for me. So I went to my advisor and said, hey, this isn't challenging me. Can you give me a list of majors that could help me because I'm trying to be in politics?
Okay.
And she said, well, you should do accounting because you got to learn how to balance a budget if you're going to be an elected official. So I instantly switched my major and made political science my minor.
Okay. So, but when did you come to your mindset to say, I want to be in politics, coming from?
I always knew it.
Like, why?
My mother named me after Adam Clayton Powell.
Okay.
So in the back of my mind, this was something that I was always going to do, but I never thought I would do it in Rochester. I actually thought I was going to be working in D.C., like working under a congressman, being involved that way, not actually being elected. That was my dream, was to go to D.C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're into college. You finish with political science being your minor and accounting being your major. Fatherhood. When did that come in? After college? Or?
After college, after I got married.
Okay, so you got married first.
I got married first, and I was purposeful in that because how I was brought up. So I got married in 1999 and had it actually was December 31st, 1999.
I ain't know the date. You know, they say us men, we don't be knowing dates.
No,
so
it's hard to forget New Year's Eve. And then we had our first daughter literally the year after. And then, I had my next kid after that. So
so all three of your children are by your wife?
My oldest daughter is mine by marriage, not biological, but that is my baby.
That's right.
I don't do step, none of that. That's my baby.
That's right.
She knows that. If you talk to her, she act more like me than any of my kids.
So when you propose, and you propose to a woman as a full package?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, I respect that. So after that, now we're into fatherhood. Fatherhood comes, and how does that feel?
I was excited.
Because you already been playing a father role.
But I was excited because I wanted to be the dad that I didn't have.
Wow.
For me, that was like the thing. So I was excited about that part of it. I just wish I got some boys out there, but but I love my daughters. But daughters take care of their father. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah,
fatherhood is now just seeing. Now you're gonna transition over into running for office.
Yes.
So take us to that moment when you decided, I'm gonna run for office. What made you run? Who influenced you?
Well, I was already even before I got married. When I met my ex-wife, I told her that this was something that I was going to do. The way I ended up back in Rochester, we're skipping a part. I had a brother that was on trial for murder.
Okay.
So I found out about that the day I graduated from college. I was not coming back to Rochester. I was going to the University of Wisconsin to get my master's, and I was going to do that and then move to D.C. That was my entire plan, and it got blown up at my graduation dinner when my mother told me. What was going on with my brother, and I said I got to go back and make sure that everybody's good. Okay. So I put my plans on hold, came back to Rochester, and worked at Fleet Bank as a financial account rep, and then I got promoted up to financial analyst.
So now that you're back in your hometown that you once was a gang member of, on probation, now, how does it feel coming back and now you're into this bank? You're like this corporate guy now. So how are you looked at in the neighborhood at this moment?
I wasn't really going back to the neighborhood back then.
Okay.
I was living such a different life at that point. Now, if I saw people, I always loved on them. They always loved on me, but I wasn't trying to be back in the neighborhood. I really wasn't.
So if we spoke to one of your old friends or homies, do you think they were acceptive to you?
Oh yeah, very much so. And
Okay.
and we can get into that, especially after I got elected. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So going back to why you wanted to run, and then you began. What made you just say, "I'm going to jump out on faith and just run, get these petitions going, get these signatures"?
Well, I had already been working on campaigns in college. I was
Okay.
a part of the South Carolina Young Democrats and the South Carolina College Democrats. My mentor was a state senator by the name of Jerry Govan.
Okay.
We ran a race that, in my mind, was an uphill battle that he should not have won, and we won.
Mm.
And when I saw that, I said, you know what? I got the bug. I can actually do this, because running in rural South Carolina where Black folks are given breaks on their rent not to vote, I've seen that. And we were able to overcome stuff like that and the little tricks that were being played by, some of the white Democrats and stuff. So when I got back here, I think I was here a year, and I reached out to the Democratic Party and said, hey, I want to work. I want to volunteer. Just put me on a campaign. And it took a while for that to happen. I mean, for some reason, nobody would offer to let me do it. And then I got involved with the Young Democrats in Monroe County, and we just took off. We became a force.
What made you choose Democrat?
I think that what the Republican Party represented in terms of their race politics, for me, wasn't going to work for me. Some of their stuff I actually liked, but the race part of it, no.
Okay. So you're now running Democrat ticket. You're on and you get enough signatures.
Mm-hmm. Petitions.
And
Yeah.
as you were petitioning, what was it like out there? Were people
It was
accepted to
great.
you? Okay.
It was great. Nobody knew me.
Okay.
And I loved it because I was able to explain who I was, why I wanted to run, the vision that I had for the district. And that was 1990, when was that? No, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, wait, hold on. Let me think about that. Was it 99 or 2? It might have been 1999 because
Okay.
I ran in 2003 years. So 1999, I go out there, put myself out there in a race against an incumbent and a guy that's supported by the mayor and Willie Lightfoot, the father, not the son.
Mm-hmm.
And they had raised all this money, and I'd lose that race by a couple of hundred votes.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, I lost because on the last day I pulled up. I didn't understand that you got to run through the finish line.
Okay.
Had I known what I know now, I could have won that race.
Okay. All right. So you went on and tried again.
Tried again, yes.
Okay.
This time I had the support of a lot of people.
Now
And-
people know you.
Mm-hmm. And I was the president of the 19th Ward Community Association. I was working on issues on Thurston Road and Chila Avenue
Okay.
and Genesee Street. So they knew me.
Okay.
And it was different. It was
All right.
very different that second time around.
Okay. So now you win this election.
Mm-hmm.
For what position?
City Council.
Okay. City Council.
Yeah, and I became what they called the baby of the council because everybody that was on the council at that time had been there 16 years, 20 years, and here I am, fresh face, and they all hated my guts with maybe the exception of one or two people.
Okay.
Because when I ran, I attacked all of them. I was relentless.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to tell people that I spent a lot of time throwing rocks at the glass house, and then I had to move in it and repair all of the holes that I put in there.
So now we talk with your city councilman, and clearly you gained the trust of the people.
Mm-hmm.
You're knocking door to door. You didn't win that round, but now people at least trust you because now you're getting your name out there.
Mm-hmm.
People seeing you in the community. You're doing great things. Again, you're gaining the trust of people.
Mm-hmm.
So now you are in the position and you are now being seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2004 is it? You said you started.
Mm-hmm.
So from then on into 2019, how would you say the journey was as a councilman?
It was beautiful.
Okay.
And I say that because I went in it being a hellraiser and came out of it being more of I would say, a person that was able to bring people together.
Okay.
So I was an agitator when I started, but by the time I got done, I was able to sit with people that didn't disagree with me and get them to agree with me. I was not an agitator anymore. I was more of a person that could work with people based on the issue, not based on the personality, which is one of the problems we have in Rochester politics. Mm-hmm. People say, I don't fool. You could have the cure to cancer and somebody say, I don't fool with him. Right, and you dying of cancer. Right. I don't fool with him.
Right.
I got past that. The people that I got into it with, I think I got one or two people I just don't like. But for the most part, the people that I was political enemies with, I didn't have a personal reason to be mad at them. So I was able to sit down with them and say, hey, what do you think about this issue? And then I let them tell me. And then we would work based on the issues, not on the personality.
So what makes Adam McFadden don't like someone? Because I've heard you say more than once here, don't like. I don't like two people. So
disrespect.
Okay. So does anything can kind of like trigger you? Like I heard you say at the beginning, you said.
I think today, not much.
Okay.
Not today. Back then, a lot.
Okay.
Today, because of what I've been through, my relationship with God and my family and all that stuff, like, no. But there was a time. Oh, absolutely.
So
and God's still working on me with those two people.
I was about to say those
He's
two
still
people.
Working. I saw one of them recently and I didn't slap him and I was surprised because I told him that's what I had for him when I saw him.
Oh, really?
So,
you
and I meant it when I said it because that's just how disrespectful that person was. They did something really dirty.
So you still have to see that individual here and there.
Yeah.
Throughout the community.
And I don't think he recognized me. He sat this close to me in a restaurant. And
so y'all don't know each other really?
No,
well,
we know each other.
Okay.
I look different now.
Okay, yeah. So different as in what? How much weight you lost?
Probably about 50 pounds.
Wow.
Cut my hair. Got this beard. So, and he's more of a Caucasian. They think we all look alike.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, but, I'm in a different place in my life where there was a time, though, I would have considered slapping fire out of him.
Okay.
Because I told him I was going to do that when I was out of politics. We were on an elevator, and I let him know, the day I'm out of politics, I'm going to slap fire out of you.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Thank God for growth, right?
Yeah, it is growth. Growth, that's a good thing.
But I told you, in my upbringing, I came up very violently.
Right.
So it's not a thing for me to think like that. Yeah. I just can't act on it.
Right. That's what I meant when I said triggers. I know we don't always act on triggers, but you can see that gentleman and feel like I really want to get with you, but you just can't now. So staying into the politics, I'm just going to jump and fast forward over to, you started an organization that was.
I didn't start it.
Oh, you didn't start it?
It's a Quad A for Kids.
Yes.
No, it was. I grew it. It was already in existence.
Oh, see, now that's new. So explain that.
So when they hired me, I think their annual budget was about $250,000. I was the only employee, and I grew it to about 60 employees, an annual budget of $1.3 million. So it was something I grew. So initially what Quad A used to do was they would raise money just to give it to people. They didn't provide any services. And I changed it and said, we have to do stuff. Because why would people give us money to give to somebody else? And I just thought that was stupid. Why would you give me money to give to Marc?
Right.
When you could just give the money to Marc.
Right. Okay. So what led you to serve on the city council? And what were your key priorities in your tenure? Your key priorities.
I think representation and voice is where I started. Because at that time, I felt like there was a segment of our community that was not being acknowledged and heard by government, specifically young Black and brown people. And it was very evident in the way that the administration and the council dealt with entertainment venues as it pertained to us. They had all of these, what I would call floating rules. I'm not going to use the word, but I used to call them the N rules.
Okay, gotcha.
because it depended on who the venue catered to. All of a sudden, it was different rules and regulations and that kind of thing. And I remember my first incident was coming out of Cross Keys, and I saw Rochester Police Department outside, and I saw the state police get in a cruiser and drive up the sidewalk, almost hitting people, trying to direct them to go home. We live in a country where you don't have to go home.
Okay.
You can't tell me to go home. You might tell me, place is closed, I can leave.
Like they said at the bar, you gotta go home, but you gotta get out of here.
And I saw this, and I just said, imagine if this happened on East Avenue with all those white folks that like to go out and party, there would be an uproar. And I wrote an outlet piece about it. And the council president and vice president wrote a rebuttal and Bob Duffy, and they killed me in the rebuttal. I mean, and I just said to myself, they don't know us. They can't see who we are. And I remember going to see Shepard, who was not the chief at the time, but he was the East Side commander.
Okay.
Because there were some things happening at Club Rain that was owned by Jesse Thompson, who ended up being a really good friend of mine, versus what was happening on East Ave under his command. So I went and saw him. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, the difference between black kids when they drink and white kids when they drink, black kids kill each other and white kids piss on lawns. That's why we do this. And I said, do you have any evidence or facts to back that up? Because that statement is incorrect. And he said, no, that's just how I police. And so they were treating people differently. A couple of weeks after that, there was a Halloween night. There was an incident at East and Alexander where the police beat up a school teacher, a black school teacher, and an RTS employee. My brother calls me. I'm in the bed at home with my then wife and said, hey, RPD is tripping out here. And I told him you were my brother, and they said, F you. So again, I got some triggers.
Right.
So I hear this, and I hear the cop in the background saying, F Adam McFadden. So I said, oh, really? So I get up. I go down to East and Alexander, and I asked my brother, which one said this? And he points them out, and I said, I want to speak to the lieutenant on charge. And he said, I'm not getting him. I said, you're going to get him now. So he brings him over. The lieutenant comes over, mother effing me and all this stuff. And I said, I got a call because I heard that you beat up a teacher and an RTS bus driver. And he said, no one got hit or hurt. And I'm looking at this Spanish guy with a big old shiner on his eye, right? He's off to the side. And I said, well, no one got hurt.
What's that?
What's that? They huddle up and they come over and arrest him. All hell breaks loose when they do that. Like, all hell breaks loose. And then this
they arrest the victim.
Yes. Bar owner comes out telling me I'm making it hot and all this stuff. He threatens me. And so I told him, I said, if you don't get out of my face, take my belt off and beat you like a child. Somehow, the press gets wind of this. And so now this guy pressed charges on me for threatening him with a belt. So that became an incident.
Okay.
And so, but the two people who got beat up by RPD, I walked them through professional standards. And that's when I knew we had a real problem, because the officer that they were alleging the abuse against comes into their interview to interview them about what happened. And I said, this is highly inappropriate. So I stopped the interview. And that's when I became a big time, critic of the Rochester Police Department when I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. Speaking of the police department now, this is our segue, great segue for us to get into saying that you are for Black and brown people, clearly, from what we've been discussing thus far, and even from what I witnessed myself. But I have to read this just so we can be clear where we're starting from. In 2022, I'm taking you back to February 11th, 2022. And see, I like the way you even respond to that date. You knew that
I know
date was going on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm just going to read the paragraph. U.S. Attorney Trina E. Ross announced today that Adam C. McFadden, 50, of Rochester, New York, who was convicted of wire fraud and filing of false tax return, was sentenced to serve 18 months in prison by U.S. District Judge Elizabeth A. Walford. McFadden was also ordered to pay a restitution totaling $265,528 to Quad A for Kids for the IRS and Rochester Housing Charities. So I wanted to segue into that after hearing you say you're for Black and brown people, because I believe so. But talking to my eavesdroppers and viewers and the people who may not, because they'll rebuttal to say, well, if so, then how did this occur? So take us to this day.
Well, it's before that day. By that day, that had already occurred. So the crime in question happened in 2015.
Correct.
So for me, like I said, I was given a gift. So when you put the gift over the giver, which is God, you get to a point where you stop forgetting why He gave you the gift. And so you make bad decisions. And I say it like this: we all make mistakes. Mine just played out very publicly and very ugly. So I've never ran from what I did. I don't make any excuses about it, because it was a really fucked up situation. It really was. And I hate that I put people through that people who loved me, trust me, counted on me. I disappointed them.
So when we talk about people trusting you, what going back to 2015 when it occurred, but take us to the moment when you decided to see if it was something, because one thing I say, unfortunately, our culture can't do the same thing as other cultures can do, as far as we know how embezzlements and all those type of things, even though that's not your charge, but that's a popular charge to other races. And it's always just looked over. So I always say to people, and I always hear other people say in our culture that, but we can't do that. So I'll
say this. There's another phrase too that we live by that I don't subscribe to, and they say we have to be twice as good as a white person. I've never wanted to kill myself to prove that I'm better than anybody. I'm my own competition.
Okay.
So for me, there's a lot of things that we can't do that we do. And that was just a thing that I did. But for me, in going through counseling and dealing with what was at the root of that, I know why I did it.
And why? Why did you do that?
So for me, growing up in extreme poverty, I never had this thing about right or wrong when it came to money. However I got it is how I got it, to be honest with you. And it clouded my judgment. Okay. Not saying that I'm making an excuse. I'm just saying, going through counseling and pointing out specific things that happened in my childhood, I came to the realization why I made that decision.
Okay.
And then when I was making the decision, I knew it was wrong. I'm not saying like I was clueless. I knew, but in the back of my mind, I'm saying, well, I'm going to do something good, and do this and do that and do that. So I rationalized why I was doing it. Well, they didn't take care of me on this end, so I'll take care of myself on this end. Okay.
So talk to the people that say, and if you hear, I don't know, grocery store conversations, and they say in aisle 12, well, he knew that money was for this and for that. He took from the Black and brown children. What is
That's not what happened, though.
Okay.
So what happened was, I knew how much it cost me to do my program. Okay. So if I raised more money than it cost me to do my program, no one suffered in my program, because we were still able to provide what we said we were going to provide.
See, and that's important to know, because I'm not justifying
the other
any
part
crime.
of that is the money is insured, so they were made whole.
Okay. So
I'm not making an excuse. I'm just giving you the facts of what happened. So it wasn't like Adam said he was going to do this and didn't do it. He took the money and the kids suffered. That's not what happened.
Okay.
So in my budget, I always put a padding in my budget for me to do what I did. I wasn't taking a lot of money. It was just a little money over a bunch of years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think, and again, there's no,
and I could have done that and just had my board vote on it. But at the time, the way that my relationship was with my board, I just did it on my own.
Okay.
And it would have been perfectly legal for me to do that. If you don't talk. So some of the money that I was charged with, I'm not trying to say that I was Robin Hood, but there are things that I did with the money that I took a charge on. I put a homeless lady up in a hotel and hired her and had her living in a hotel for a month until she could get a place. I got charged with that.
Okay.
So there are things in the charges that people don't know. I'm not trying to say I didn't benefit, because I definitely benefited from it. So I'm not trying to cushion what I did at all. But I accepted responsibility for everything because it was just the easiest way to deal with it.
Okay.
I wasn't going to say, no, this money was really this versus this money was that, because the way that I went about it was wrong.
And so I want to embrace the term regret and see, when you hear that term, what do you think regarding this situation that we're speaking?
I'll say this. Regret is a funny term.
Okay.
Because you have to understand where I am today. Do I regret hurting people and disappointing my family and disappointing Quade? Absolutely, right? But for me personally, had I not gone through this process, the father that I became, the spiritual person that I became, probably would have never happened.
See, I need elaboration on that. Like, how does a better father come out of committing a crime and being convicted?
Because it made me focus more on what was important and not material things, not everybody else's problem, but my family. I got laser focus on my family. If you talk to any of my daughters, they will tell you that I've changed in the way that I communicate, the way that I love on them, the way I express myself to them. Because I was a very hard father. I'm not that now.
Okay. So I'm going to throw some words out there in regards to this situation, and you tell me, after I say the word, what comes to your mind. After this went public and you were all over the news and everybody was talking, what do you say about the word embarrassed?
Embarrassed? It's not strong enough.
Okay.
I couldn't run from it. I couldn't hide from it. What people don't know is I actually had a chance to leave the country. I have friends in other countries that was like, just come over here, we'll take care of you. I could have ran from it, but I stayed and faced it. There was another elected official, maybe a year before I got in trouble, that killed himself out on Lake Avenue when he was getting ready to go through a similar thing. I never ran from it. I faced it. So was I embarrassed by it? Absolutely. I was more embarrassed for my family and friends who love me than I was for myself, because now they have to defend me, because that's just what people who love you do. They got to defend you, right? I didn't want them to defend me. But you know who I was most embarrassed for was my mom. It took me a while to even face my mother because I know what she wanted for me. And I was her everything in the, in terms of how she brought me up. So imagine your first child going off to live his dreams, going off to be the first to go to college on academic scholarship and all of this stuff, and goes into, in the corporate world and then gets elected. Like, I was like everything, and I let her down. Even though she's never said that to me. But that was the hardest thing, was facing my mother. And trying to explain my mistakes to my children. I don't wish that on nobody. Most adults run from it and say, hey, we don't talk about that. I had to talk about it. I'm all over the news. I'm in the paper. I'm sure they're hearing it at school.
Right.
I had to talk about it. And it made them stronger.
Your daughters.
Oh, yeah.
So that time that you had to face your mother, you haven't sat and talked to your mother yet and told her specifically what went on?
No.
Okay, still to this day.
My mother is kind of like a spiritual warrior. So, so she prayed and prayed and prayed and kept me on Psalms 91, that kind of thing. But she never said what happened. She never asked. And I don't know that I could tell her.
Because what would it be if your mom is sitting here now, you wouldn't be able to just sit and
I'd
tell her?
probably break. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Well, Miss McFadden, could you come? No, I'm just playing. That would have been something. I was like, well, come on in.
No, I'd have got up. I'd have got up. I mean, I'm laughing about it,
Right.
but it is painful for me. You know, it is painful for me because my mother expected a lot from me, and I let her down.
Yeah, I can see that pain in you, and that's a good pain because I want people to understand that. I'm glad as you spoke on the word regret, and you categorize it to where it is, more like with your family, your mother, your daughters. And I don't sense that you're saying you don't regret it, meaning you'll do it again. Like,
No.
People
It's
listening.
not that. It's just that I embraced the screw up that I did as an obstacle that I needed to get past. I embraced it. I didn't let it fold me. I didn't crumble under it. I said, I'm going to embrace this and try to make something out of this that means something for the people who care about me.
Right. Another word, disloyal.
Disloyal. I look at that. Loyalty is a two-way street.
Okay.
So you can't be disloyal to somebody who isn't honest.
Let's say that again. You can't be disloyal to someone who isn't honest.
Right.
And if you had to elaborate a little on that.
I don't owe anybody loyalty that wasn't honest with me or honest about me or the situation.
Understood. And that's respected. So if we say rebound.
Got a podcast called The Bounce Back.
Right.
And rebounding for me is not being in elected office. Rebounding to me is the spiritual rebirth of myself, my relationship with the Creator, my relationship with my children, people that love on me. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not really looking at like running again or anything like that. That the person that I had to be, what people don't understand about running for office, it takes all of the worst stuff about you and amplifies it. It really does, because it's a popularity contest. It's a fight. It's begging people for their approval and all that.
And forgiveness. Because say you do it again, do you think that people actually will vote for Adam McFadden again?
Absolutely. Look at what we got now.
No, that's right.
Absolutely. I got people call me every day, ask me to consider it. Every day. Look at what we got now. Where's the voice of our people right now? All the stuff that's happening, where's the voice?
Right.
People pretend mad. They show up for pictures.
Selective anger.
They like, the what I would call the 20-second photo op on stuff. But where is the voice for our people? Look at what's happening.
Speaking of Bounce Back podcast that you're on with WDKX, a local radio station, one of the quotes I took down here that you said is, and I like it, people won't stand in the rain with you if there's a dry option. People will not stand in the rain with you.
That's why you got to respect those people who do.
And so there were people that stood in the rain with you through this.
Absolutely. My crew, the Horsemen, most people know. I've got the same friends from high school all the way to college and adulthood. They've been solid. My family, a number of elected officials around the country that I've mentored. A lot of people don't know I've mentored a lot of elected officials too. I was the president of the National Black Caucus, a local elected official. So, but there are a number of people who still with me, but there are some people who abandoned me.
And how did that feel?
I rode for some people. They didn't have a car themselves. How else to explain it? But I'm happy to lose them too. Why would I want somebody around me that's like that?
Do you sense a little bit of arrogance in your tone?
No. No. I have extreme, I've been humbled by this situation. I'm at a place where I can talk about it because of counseling. So I'm happy to get the message out. It's not that I'm arrogant, because I don't have an ulterior motive here. For me, this is about people learning from my mistake and not repeating it.
Mm-hmm.
But also saying, you know, there are people who are going to be with you because of what you can provide for them. And when you can't, they go.
I know you said your mother didn't speak on the situation. Have any of your daughters spoken to you on the situation? So they've spoken to you.
Oh, yeah.
How is it talking to them?
I will say, oh man, whoo, tough.
Mm.
Especially my oldest daughter, because she was like, you raised me to be this and do that and do things right and do this, and you messed around and did this.
So they were disappointed.
You know. Yeah, and that was pretty much the sentiment from all three of them.
Mm.
But they still love me, but they chastised me because I raised my daughters to be very vocal and assertive, and you know, to voice, you know, how they feel. I don't tell them to have filters because I want them to be real with me.
Mm.
So yeah, that was tough, dude.
I can imagine, like you said, with your mother, then sit down. Our daughters are our princesses. Mm-hmm. They're soft, and you know we want to handle them delicate. And so to sit here and see them hurt off of something you did publicly.
Thinking about it now makes me sad because I did not want to put them through. You want to shield your children from stuff, right? And they realized that Dad wasn't Superman. They thought he was, and then they realized he was Clark Kent.
Mm.
You know, so but I'll say this, in all of this, if you hear a tone that may sound arrogant, I'm still me.
Right.
I'm still a confident person. I still believe in myself. And I still believe that God has something for me. So I walk in that. I don't look down on anybody. I don't crush anybody else's dream or vision or think differently about them because I'm too worried about what I need to do and what God has for me.
Right. And you like 53 now?
I'll be 53 in 2 weeks.
53 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What I want to say to you, when hearing you just say, I was their Superman, I want to say to you from brother to brother, man to man, I don't see you as a failure from one decision because we're all a decision away from a wrong choice.
I get
so I don't want you to keep speaking like you're not Superman anymore from one era. Like we all make these decisions.
But it's different when your children see you not live the values that you tried to put in them.
Right.
It's just different.
I understand.
And so even when I talk to them now, I still side on the side of right. One of my daughters, I won't embarrass her. She's very bright. Mm-hmm. But if she can take a shortcut, she's going to take the shortcut.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it.
So she's one of the people that could use her talents for good or evil. And I'm constantly like, hey, we're on the side of good.
Okay. So in conclusion here with Mr. Adam McFadden, I want to conclude in this another quote that you said that I like, and I want you to expound on it as we leave our eavesdroppers here and mark my words. You quote, "This is not the end of me. This is the start of a new me." Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
I think people thought I would go away, that I would run and hide and not show my face. And where I'm at right now, there are things that I want to do to still provide voice for a challenged community, but I'm doing not out in public. That I'm building something with a population of young people who the system has given up on. And that's where I'm concentrating my efforts right now.
Have you reached back or even talked to Quad kids? Okay.
I've talked to a couple of board members, but not.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
So that's good news that you're starting to get back in the community and do what you're destined to do and that you're good at doing. Mm-hmm. I hope no one takes from you that they take away your skills. They can't.
No.
Your skills are there. You, like you said, you've done things in the community that shouldn't be forgotten because of one decision that you made that you were accountable for and you did time for. But we got to talk about this time because people think you didn't never go to jail. You had 18 months. What did you do?
So I got sentenced and self-reported to Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary Camp, which is about 2.5 hours south of Rochester. You go down 390 to 15 and take you right to Lewisburg. I got there April 6th, and I think 6 days later, April 12th, I filed an administrative remedy to the warden under the CARES Act, which Donald Trump championed, to do my time from home. 20 days later, I found out I was being granted that, and they just required me to do 25% of my time, which was a little under 5 months. So after the 5 months was up, I came home and was on house arrest up until March of last year, where I completed my sentence.
So you even went into prison with some intellect,
absolutely.
some intelligence to say,
I assisted 9 other people get out.
You assisted 9 other people get out.
Mm-hmm.
This is under that CARES Act.
Under the CARES Act, yes.
Okay. So you did the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important that y'all know he did the time. He did 18 months.
Shout out to the people in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary that might be watching this on cell phones that they're not supposed to have.
So you did a little under 5 months, but was sentenced 18.
Yes.
Because you were intellectual enough to go into research and find out
I
ways to get
am very resourceful because I love to read. I love the law. I love policy, and I know how to use it. So when I got there, I remember telling one of the guys that I was going to apply for, and they said, "Oh man, they're not granting that." I said, "I read the law. I'm going to put it in." I met with a brother that worked in the law library, a brother by the name of Savino, who's actually depicted on one of the shows, The Wire. He's the real life character of one of the people on the show, who was what I would call the jailhouse lawyer there, and I worked under him while I was there. And he showed me how to put it together. I put it together, and it got answered 20 days later, and I knew I was going home early. But a lot of people don't know about that system is that says people die. I ended up in the hospital because of medication they were giving me. So
medication for
blood pressure. They were giving me medicine that was dropping my blood pressure so low that it almost put me in a heart attack situation. I had a cardiac situation where I had to be in the hospital like 5 days. So,
I'm glad you're here, brother.
Yeah, well, it's meant for me to be here. That's how I look at it. God has things for me to do. But I definitely went away, and I definitely assisted people to complete their sentences from home. Because if you're in a camp, honestly, you can do your time from home.
Right.
The job I had while I was at the camp, I worked in Unicor, which was actually at another prison. It was in Allenwood. Lewisburg and Allenwood is probably about 20 minutes apart.
Okay.
You know how I got there?
Oh.
I drove myself.
Well.
On the expressway.
Okay.
And other inmates. I was a driver.
Wow.
So if I could do that, guess where I could do my time at? Home.
Pretty much. All right, y'all, for Mark My Words, I want to lastly give you this chance to shout out your frat. Your frat is important, and clearly they must have stuck by you.
Absolutely. That's a brotherhood that's undeniable. Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, Blue Phi. I've been a member since 1994, 30 years.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
All right, eavesdroppers. I just want to say this in conclusion, just to know that all of us are human beings. All of us are a decision away from a wrong choice. It doesn't make it to where our identity, our issue becomes our identity. That's not the case. Unfortunately, sometimes we do make those decisions that we sometimes have to sit back on and birth other things out of that. Mr. McFadden today has explained his story to our platform, and I'm greatly appreciated. But just be careful on the choices that we make and decisions we make. But when we do make those decisions, know that there is a chance of coming back. Redemption awaits you. Thank you. I'm your host, Mark Williams, from Mark My Words podcast. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast is what they've been missing. When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast is what they've been missing. When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast, this is what they've been missing. When I talk, they listen. This is what they've been missing. This podcast is what they've been missing.
Word.